as it happens throughout our fascinating world. Have you ever dreamed of finding gold, of knowing it's there without weeks or months of digging and hoping? You see, some people are supposed to have the gift of finding underground streams with the aid of a willow switch or divining rod. With others, it's precious metals like gold, or that's what they claim. And it's what we set out to check up on here in Baja California. There's a lot of remote, rugged country here. We sent a true adventure camera crew to explore the haunted cave of Devil's Peak, and most especially to film an attempt to find gold by the almost legendary means of divination. What they brought back is as mystifying as anything that ever blurred the distinction between science and fantasy. Men have been looking for gold since the dawn of history, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. But in either case, it's an activity that's always yielded a high grade of excitement. Add the baffling fact of discovering gold with the aid of a divining rod, and I think you'll agree that the result is an unusually intriguing true adventure. A trip into the past, a lost vein of gold, the unspoiled wilderness of Baja California and Old Mexico. These are the ingredients for any true adventure. But our expedition down there has something more in mind, too. Investigating the bewildering and controversial business of finding water and precious metals by means of willow wands and old Spanish divining rods. The investigation begins here at the Melling Ranch. Greeting the members of our expedition is Mrs. Melling, whose father bought the ranch in 1910. There's an old gold mine on the property that was worked for many years before the ranch changed owners, so this will give us a chance to find out if the divining rods really worked. The party learns from Mr. and Miss Melling that the ranch's previous owner started working the mine in 1895, but had to stop during the Mexican Revolution. The rich vein of gold he found was lost. This man will try to find it again using ancient divining techniques. Meanwhile, another member of the crew, Lee Hansen, is finding out about a different form of divining from the Melling's son, Phil. Phil is what is sometimes called a water witch. He claims to have located 150 water wells in the past few years by using a willow stick, and a talent that he doesn't pretend to understand. He simply cuts a willow stick off a branch and then goes to work. Now, to make this demonstration, Phil explains he's chosen the location of a known underground stream of water. When he comes to the stream, the willow stick will indicate it by turning. Let's watch. Well, it apparently works. As I mentioned before, this is controversial business. This practice goes back centuries. Some reports of its success have certainly been exaggerated, and some careful students have concluded that it's nothing more than superstition, that water witching never works except by accident or by coincidence. Well, all we can do is show you exactly what our True Adventure cameras recorded. Now, here's a test Phil Melling devised to prove a point. As long as contact between Phil and Lee remained unbroken, the stick continues to work, indicating, Phil Melling insists, the presence of water in the underground stream beneath their feet. The willow stick, Lee told us, was obviously turning by itself without any help from Phil. To prove that, Lee tried another experiment. He holds the end of the willow stick in a pair of pliers as hard as he can. Once again, it works. The force of the stick's turning has almost twisted the stick itself in two. A change of scene now. Baja California and Old Mexico has changed so little in recorded history It's been called a land that time forgot. Most of it is desolate and dry. One of the first travelers ever to visit Baja California in the year of 1539 said that of the four elements that make up the universe, earth, air, fire, and water, God gave this country only two, air and fire. Here is where the next step in our investigation is going to take place. This is the old Socorro Gold Mine and the remains of its primitive equipment. This cave was used by a family of Indians who worked the mine even before the Melling's predecessor came here in 1895. An ancient mine, a lost vein of gold. These are the elements that legends are made of. And the means our expedition is going to use in their attempt to find that lost gold vein is just as legendary. Peter Reed, seen here with Mrs. Melling, is a geophysicist with years of experience in mining. He's the owner of a set of Spanish rods, divining rods. Supposedly, there's a deposit of non-ferrous metal down there. That's one that's not derived from iron ore, something like gold or silver. And the rods will only point down when there is gold or silver in the ground. So we stake out the point. These Spanish rods are about 300 years old. These and others like them were used in Spain and its colonies for centuries. Experience, by the way, has shown that they work best when used by a man and a woman. The girl's Lee Hansen's wife. Uh-oh. The non-ferrous metal is back that way. That's right. Stake it out. This is the apparent limit of the deposit in this direction, at least. And so we mark the spot. It still remains to be determined how long or wide the deposit is in the other direction. So far, all we know is that this is the general area in which the last owner of this property was working when the Revolution brought his mining to an end. We have no idea the value of the gold itself. We'll have to find that out later, or if there is gold. Right now, all we're trying to do is determine the limits of the gold deposit by using the old Spanish rods. Like this. Down they go. Peter Reed's trained eye finds indication of gold ore right here at the surface. Sure enough, a rock containing flecks of gold. A definite vein of gold-bearing ore. Moistening it brings out the color of the gold. But there's no way to tell the value of the deposit. A complete assay is going to have to be necessary. Now, the limits of the deposit have been found and marked by using the Spanish rods, but there's still one unpleasant possibility to be dealt with. The Spanish rods might have given indication of an underground stream that carried, say, mineralized sand. It's important to know if there's hidden water in the area of the deposit. So Phil Melling, with his willow switch, goes to work. bad sign. Melling tells us that the willow stick works for him on horseback just as well as when he's walking. It also works while riding a car, a buggy, a ranch truck, or anything. Following the length of the stream he's found, he marks its course as he goes along. Luckily, the stream turns out not to follow the plot of the mineral deposit, so the next step can begin. A series of test holes provide ore samples for assaying. This is a very important step in any potential gold mining area because, well, it's the only way to find out what sort of return you can expect before making a big investment in machinery and manpower. The water is to wash away the valueless soil, leaving the heavier gold-bearing ore behind. Sure enough, Mrs. Melling's panning operation produces some of the black sand that often means gold. But our expedition isn't content to sit and wait for the results of the assay. They're in a wild, ancient land of old Mexico. Attempts to settle it began in 1632, only 40 years after Columbus first discovered the New World. Now crumbling walls echo the whispers of history. In this land that time forgot, not much changes except the works of man, but people once lived and worked right here at the site of this old mission. Men dug for gold, and wherever past and present meet, you'll find true adventure. Our True Adventure expedition to Baja California has made camp for the night. Legends crowd in on you out here, and sometimes at night, even the most skeptical individual has to admit to a chill of apprehension. There are plenty of strange tales to listen to. There are ghosts and portents, even a big black dog that appears at the Melling Ranch just before someone nearby dies. Tales like these are told after sundown all over the world. But here, where the Indians believe them implicitly, Gary Silvers and his wife Mary take them as a dare and start off for some late-night exploring. They've come to the Mission Graveyard. This should give you some idea of how old these graves are. Dug out of the sands of time, a gold bracelet. Just a coyote, or was it? The Indians might tell you otherwise. The next morning, by daylight, the mission looks almost as haunted as it did during last night. If not by real ghosts, then by a past. A past that won't die, but lingers like the memory of a dream.
These surroundings sort of get a hold of the imagination. Here it's even hard to remember what you came for was to look for gold. This is living history, because some of the mission ruins in Baja California date back to the early 1700s. The Indian guide has to leave now. He's to take Lee Hansen to the old mine tunnel. Meantime, the rest of the party starts combing the ruins with a metal detector. There's something down there. Could be anything, treasure, or something completely worthless, centuries old, or made last year. Well, it's old, all right. It's a lock, dating back to Spanish days. Meanwhile, the guide and Lee Hansen are approaching the old mine. Quite a few signs of mining activity visible down there. Tailings from the old mine itself. It may have been operated centuries before. There's the mine tunnel entrance. Oh, this trip's not for him. There's no telling what a man might come across invading a place like this. Feeling going into an old tunnel like this, and remembering that the use of the Spanish rods to locate deposits of precious metal like gold came into widest use in Spain in the 17th century. Every year, the Spanish government conducted a search for people with a strange ability to use the rods. The ones found were often sent to Mexico to look for gold to fill Spanish coffers from old mines like this. And perhaps the gold in this very tunnel, if there is any, was first discovered by means of a set of Spanish rods. Who used this water bottle? How long ago? Before Mrs. Melling's father bought the ranch or after? And what became of him? The tunnel's not shored up too well. This may prove to be a more dangerous undertaking than Lee had expected. Another mystery. makes no pretense of being an expert, but this vein just might mean gold. The least he can do is to take samples. Just a hunk of rock or gold ore. It's a little unnerving to think that here in your hand may be some of the wealth that man died for. How about him? Did he ever get to spend any of it before his time ran out? The lost vein of gold has been sought out. The digging's been done. There's nothing more our expedition can accomplish in Baja California. Back to the Melling Ranch House now, and back across the border into the United States to see if the divining rods really worked. Lee Hanson's role in this true adventure is not complete yet. It's going to be his job to follow up on the ore samples taken from the Melling clay. At the Smith Emery Company, one of the foremost assay companies in Los Angeles, he's going to do just that. The Melling samples have been ground to a pulp. After weighing, flux is added to help remove impurities. And the mixture is put into a furnace preheated to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. After 35 to 45 minutes, the crucibles are removed, and their now molten contents are poured into iron molds and allowed to cool. After the pour is cooled and hardened, it's broken away, leaving a small lead button. If there's any gold present, it's in this button. The lead buttons are then heated again. This causes the lead to evaporate. The product of this step, pellets of mixed gold and silver. Now each sample is weighed. The next step, dissolving away the silver with nitric acid. Then what's left is gold. Gold found by Spanish divining rods. The finding confirmed by the assay report. The signed and sealed conclusion to a true adventure.
So there you have it, a surefire way to find gold. All it takes is talent and a pair of Spanish rods. If you're as mystified as I am, I think we've got company, because no one seems to have offered an explanation of this phenomenon. Speaking of gold, though, there have been times when other things were valued just as highly. You've heard the expression, worth its weight in gold? Well, there was a time in ancient Greece when it took a pound of gold to buy a pound of silk. Still, gold has sort of a special magic about it. I imagine there'll be prospectors out hunting it as long as there's any left in the ground. I want to thank you for sharing this true adventure with us. Until we meet again, this is Bill Burrud saying, may all your adventures be happy ones.